Hello, Dr. Greg, and thank you so much for joining us on episode 156 of the Emotional Eats podcast.
Kim, it's such a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
I'm excited to have you here. You are going to be my expert today with psychology, stress, burnout, emotional regulation. So, if we are talking to women today who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, or high achievers, they're struggling with using food as a coping mechanism, maybe other things also. What are you hoping that women will feel when they're done with this episode?
I like how you rattled off all the different things I'm the expert in today. No pressure or anything. Just no, I appreciate it. The thing that I'm hoping the women who are listening today feel is that they start to feel a little bit more relief and they start to feel a little bit more confidence in their abilities to actually work through the issues that you have been talking with them about for, 156 episodes prior to this. A lot of times people tend to kind of downplay the power that they have, but the reality is we have more power than we let on. And so I'm hoping that I can help your audience with that particular issue.
Well, I am so happy to jump right in. So, why do you think so many people who can hold it together during the day, they're high achievers, they can take care of a schedule, they can take care of a family, they're doing well in their jobs. Why do they struggle privately with things like emotional eating or stress eating?
Yeah, such a great question. High achievers span so many different areas, right? I mean, we can go up to the top of people who are in the C-suite, but high achiever can be an entrepreneur who's putting a lot into things. High achiever can be someone who is just putting their family first as much as possible, which is really noble and admirable. The issue becomes that when we have high achievers who research tends to show burn a little bit hotter than the average person, and by hotter, I mean a little bit more anxious, a little bit more nervous, prone to worry, these things sort of fuel their day because they're trying to achieve. Healthy levels of anxiety can be useful, right? It's kind of the thing that stops us from jumping out into the middle of traffic when we're at a crosswalk. I mean, if you have the urge to do that because you don't have enough anxiety, that would be a problem. I'd be concerned about you for a whole bunch of different reasons. But then, of course, if we have too much, we may never leave that corner and enter the crosswalk. So for people who are high achievers, they tend to have a little bit more anxiety. They're putting a lot of energy, effort into their days. Man, by the time they get home, they just want to actually try and relax. A lot of times, though, they have a hard time doing that because that achievement part of them is pushing them. Well, do more, do more. You can probably wash the dishes, or you can do that thing in the room, that paint that room that you wanted to, or hang that picture, whatever it is. And then that leads to one thing and another thing and another thing. I remember seeing a video once of a woman saying, I'm going to go into the kitchen to get, I think it was a spoon or something. And then the whole 90-second video is her crying because she went for the spoon, but then realized, oh, but then the bathroom needed toilet paper. And then, oh, wait, but then the mirror was dirty. And then, oh, but wait, it just keeps going and going and going. So what's something that tends to bring people a lot of comfort, whether you're a high achiever or not? That's going to be food, especially that wonderful, sugary, fried, chocolatey, all that goodness that our bodies are naturally inclined to want to have. Nothing wrong with having that stuff in moderation. The problem becomes when that's my only way of coping. And if I'm going through such a busy day that I outlined, one quick, easy fix is just reach for the ice cream, reach for the cake, reach for that second or third helping of whatever dinner is, because that's going to make me feel good in the short term, but then maybe not so good in the long term.
Yeah, that's exactly what seems to be happening. We're reaching for something. And if it's not the food, it could be scrolling on social media, vegging out. I almost feel like that's not as bad, vegging out to a show. But I want to go back to what you said about going into the kitchen
Yeah.
because I laugh. The video that I see that makes me crack up is because it's in my house. The husband will say, I'm going to bed now, and he goes to bed. The woman's like, I'm going to go to bed, and she throws another load of laundry in, and then she picks up something on the way,
Yep.
and then she folds the clothes, and by the time she gets there, she's done 5 things on the way to bed, watered, the dog or whatever. So I get that. And I also want to go back. We burn hotter. I say we because I was totally part of this crew. Everybody who's listened to the podcast knows that I am in that area. Burning hotter and having that anxiety. It seems like we're overthinkers too. We
Hmm.
tend to overthink everything. And what I often hear is, when we're talking about emotional eating is that we're not processing emotions or regulating emotions, but I'm not sure that we even understand what that means. Can you help us understand even really what emotional regulation is?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very clinical, fancy term. I
Mm.
think it's most prominent in DBT, which is called dialectical behavior therapy. It was made by Dr. Marsha Linehan, who she's fantastic. Really like the work that she's done. But it's this idea that in order for us to live healthier, more fulfilling lives, one of the things that is going to help us out is being able to moderate our emotions. So you can kind of think about it like, well, I guess everything is a touch screen now, but if you think back to older cars where they had the dial for the temperature, right? I mean, if you're always cold, that's going to be a problem. Even if it's really hot in summer, eventually as you're driving, you're going to get too cold. And the same is true if it's you're maxing out the heat. And so what we're trying to do is stay in that optimal range. There's a whole bunch of skills that I work with all my clients on and that Dr. Linehan has talked about through the years that help us stay in that 0 to 7 range. The reason why 0 to 7 is so important is because when we hit that 8 or higher, that's really when the logical part of our brains tends to shut down. It never fully goes off, but it gets very, very quiet. The emotions take over. That's a whole bunch of different skills that we would use for that. The more that we can regulate ourselves in that 0 to 7 range, the better we're going to be able to make decisions that are helpful for us. Part of being able to regulate is something that you actually spoke on a moment ago, which is that overthinking. A lot of times people will have, well, everybody has a lot of thoughts every single day. The number that I see a lot of different numbers, but the number I tend to see come up the most is that we have about 10,000 thoughts a day.
Wow.
Now, I don't know about you, but if I had to sit and think
Mhm.
consciously through 10,000 things in my day,
It's
man, I would get
exhausting.
nothing done. Yes, I would be so exhausted
Mm.
and it
Mm.
wouldn't make for a good life, right? So
Gosh.
the brain adapts and it gives us a lot of shortcuts, automatic mental shortcuts. And one of the terms that I like to use, sometimes people, well, there's a whole bunch of different terms for it. One of the ones I see that I don't like is mindlessness, right? Which you're not really being in the present moment. But that makes it sound like we're crazy, and I don't really like that term. So I prefer the term autopilot. And this is just moving through the day without really thinking about what you're doing. And what you were describing, the woman with doing 5 things before bed, I mean, that's someone who just got on autopilot. Even if it was for 15, 20 minutes, all of a sudden, she's doing 5, 6, 7 things. And maybe she's annoyed after that. Maybe she starts thinking about how, someone should have helped her with these things. In this case, that husband.
You must be in my
Excuse me.
house. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
What's that? I'm sorry.
I said, "You must be in my house." No, that's a joke because I stopped doing it, but I do. That is what I hear from my clients is they are doing these things and there's a chatter, there's a loop going on in their head about how they're doing this all alone. Everyone take a water break because we just
Yeah,
did.
excuse me. I'm sorry. I had something caught in my throat and I was like, oh God, don't just start coughing
This
all
is
over
a
the
human
podcast.
podcast. It is
Okay,
okay.
good. I had a very human moment, so thank you for understanding if there was dead air. No, but it's true, right? Because we can start to think, all right, well, I need to do X, Y, Z. This is important to me. This is just what I do. It's part of my day. And I'm not even thinking about how starting to stack these activities late at night might impact my emotional well-being. So in this case, this husband, he could have done more to help. He just went to bed. Why didn't he think about, well, there's laundry that needs to be done. This object needs to be picked up or, the dishes could have been put away because it's going to make the next day easier. And maybe that's true. But in the meantime, as these thoughts start to spin around in people's heads, well, that's going to start to impact emotions. And so now the emotions might have started off as maybe a little annoyed, and then it starts to get irritated, and then it starts to get upset, and then it starts to get angry. And eventually, if we're not keeping this in check, this pushes us up to the 8 to 10 range. And 8 to 10 range doesn't just have to be the explosion, right? People kind of think about that, especially if it's anger. It's going to be this big explosion, yelling, throwing things. Not necessarily. Sometimes people will internalize their emotions. And in particular, I mean, the research has been real clear on this for many, many decades. Women tend to internalize their emotions a little bit more. So that might look like kind of sitting with that emotion, just spinning it around in your head, or, whatever that might look like for somebody. And so, if I can't go to sleep now because my emotions are all spun up, well, what am I going to do to feel better? Maybe it's the TV show, but in this case, considering the subject matter, maybe it's going to be, I'm going to go get a bowl of ice cream. And I'm just going to go do it because I'm letting my emotion take over in that moment. And for the record, I don't have any judgment around that. That is, as you mentioned, a very perfectly natural human thing to do. It's just a matter of how does that serve us with our long-term goals? And in that moment, it doesn't really. It just serves us in the short term.
I have two thoughts about that. I love this. First of all, going to get the ice cream or going into the pantry for the chips or the chocolate, that seems to be almost an automatic autopilot response after a while also. And then there's so much shame and guilt, but there's no interrupt because there's no awareness that that's what's happening. That's my first thought, is how does someone even go back before that and understand that and be aware that these behaviors that they're participating in, they're wishing other people were participating in, they're internalizing. What can they do to start having just awareness? Because we know it can't change overnight. It's just that first, what's that first step that a woman might need to start looking at in this pattern?
It's a great question, and I'm going to give you the world's longest answer because we kind of have to build up
We're
to it.
We're here for it.
Great. I have taken on what feels like one of the world's most impossible task at this point, which is trying to convince everybody that I talk to of the benefits of mindfulness, because that's the short answer to your question. And the reason why I say this is impossible or seemingly impossible is because it's such a buzzword these days. And I don't know about you, but it just seemed like maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, all of a sudden it was just mindfulness everywhere. Everyone needs to be more mindful, just be more mindful. But nobody, from my perspective, really did a good job of explaining what that means. They just kind of used it to, sell whatever it is that they were trying to sell.
Exactly.
So I am going to save you and your audience thousands of dollars on mindfulness seminars. You're welcome. And I'm going to define it, right here, right now. It's paying attention on purpose to the present moment, non-judgmentally. And I'll say it again if anyone wants to take notes. Paying attention on purpose to the present moment, non-judgmentally. And by non-judgmentally, I mean focusing on the facts of the situation as they are, not as I want them to be. So because we're often on autopilot, we're not really thinking about what we're doing. So if we're going to do something to interrupt that automatic grabbing the chips, grabbing the ice cream, grabbing whatever, then we have to actually become more aware of what we're doing in the moment. And that means we have to build up our mindfulness skills. So one of the ways that we can start to do this is with our physical senses. So as an example, I wonder how the shirt feels on your skin right now. And if someone is listening and they don't have a shirt, well, put a shirt on. But, and I bet you that everybody who is listening probably didn't even think about how their shirt was feeling on their skin right now because it just became part of the background. It became automatic. That's okay. I would be concerned about you for another reason if you walked around all day thinking about how your shirt's feeling on your skin. But the point that I'm trying to make is that it's okay to focus on the little things in the moment. And in fact, it's desirable to do that. And we start with the physical senses. So maybe it's just a quick exercise like that. How does this chair feel that I'm sitting in? How do these headphones feel in my ears? And then maybe it becomes a ritual for you. So another example, hopefully everybody brushed their teeth this morning. And I know I'm guilty of this too. when we brush our teeth, are we actually focused on the task at hand? And I suspect probably for most people, it's, for me, it's I got music or a video queued up and I'm kind of listening to that and, thinking about what I'm going to wear and all this versus if I were to give myself the gift of 1 to 2 minutes, how do the bristles of the toothbrush feel on my teeth and my gums? What is the taste of the toothpaste? How heavy is the toothbrush in my hand? We don't tend to think about this because it's just an automatic thing that we do. But if we were to give ourselves the gift of that, we can start to build from 1, 2 minutes a day to additional activities during the day. What am I thinking about on my drive to work? What does this dinner actually taste like? Am I enjoying it? It's kind of the difference between if you go to a nice steakhouse. The cheapest thing on the menu is $100. You're probably not going to scarf it down like you did your eggs this morning.
Exactly.
And so if we can take that same mentality and apply it to our meal, okay, well, that's a longer period of time. Maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's 10 minutes. Maybe I start to set alarms on my phone, once every 60 minutes, 90 minutes, just check in. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? The more that you start to build this routine, it, in a weird way, becomes your new autopilot so that as you start to walk into the kitchen, as you start to look at that bag of chips, that ice cream, you can actually pause and take stock of what's happening in the moment. Now, being aware is just the first step. For those that are familiar, if they've had any other problems with addiction, the 12-step program, step 1 of 12 is recognizing there's a problem. There's 11 more steps after that, but you can't do any of those steps until you have step 1, and the same is true here. I have to recognize what I'm doing in the moment without judgment. So I'm not some failure of a person because I'm standing in the kitchen reaching for a snack. If I start to tell myself that, man, I'm going to really bring that hammer down on myself pretty quick, and I might feel, I think you mentioned guilt and shame, and all of this is going to come up. Well, that's going to make things worse, and I'm probably going to be more likely to reach for that snack. What would be more helpful is being able to check in on my thinking. What am I thinking in this moment? And what am I assuming to be gospel truth? I'll pause there for a minute because I feel like I've been talking for a minute.
I love it. And I am gonna just stop on a couple things. I love to
Yes.
park on one, when we stop and we have those moments, and this is a beautiful example. Listeners, you need to listen to this podcast more than once because we hear it and we don't implement until we've heard it a couple times and we practice. So this is really important. And I think about it when I'm driving to work to the downtown office. And I'm trying really hard to not even listen to a podcast or anything on the way and notice things along the way. And what it reminds me of is I find when I'm doing what you're talking about, I notice how something feels, what I see more and I have more simple joy in my life, which also takes away the need to escape with the food at night because I'm more aware of everything that's going on. So I love this really taking a moment. And I was feeling my shirt. I was like, I don't even remember what this feels like. I just put it on. And so I really love the feeling the shirt one. That is a really good example. The other thing that you mentioned was the non-judgment because when I feel like we start the cycle again when we have that shame and that guilt and we're judging ourselves. There's nobody else judging us. Even the food's not even judging us, but we're in it and we are creating this cycle that just makes us keep going. And sometimes we just give up and say, okay, I'm just going to keep going. It doesn't matter because of that. And I do want to back up. And
Please.
anything you want to say about that before I go on to the truth?
No, I love what you said, so
Okay.
let's do it.
So the facts and the truth. This to me reminds me, let's go back to the woman who's cleaning the kitchen and doing all these things and her husband's all relaxing in bed. The truth of some matters we don't necessarily recognize right away. Instead of thinking that he is the bad guy and not doing thing and not helping us, maybe the truth is she's never shared what she needs. So where does that come into play? Like how do you in a moment calm yourself enough to be able to actually see the truth? And then we can have a whole nother discussion on unmet needs and speaking your needs.
Absolutely. And certainly, I'm not trying to say that every husband out there is perfect. Certainly,
Right.
as you mentioned, there are unmet needs. In general, though, assuming that there are no issues with the relationship, one thing that I've heard it said kind of two ways, called checking the facts or thought diffusion. These are just kind of the big terms. But essentially, a lot of times when we have an emotion, and our emotions are going to influence our thinking, and our thinking is going to influence our emotions. When we have an emotion or a thought, we tend to take them as gospel truth. So, as an example, let's just say you're sitting at the office and you see your coworker Jessica walking by, right? And you say, "Hey, Jessica," and she just keeps on walking. What's the first thought that pops into your head?
She doesn't like me.
Yeah, she doesn't like me. What a jerk, right? I did something wrong. And then, of course, if you're thinking that to
Mhm.
yourself, what sort of emotion is going to pop up?
Oh, probably insecurity, worthiness, or maybe even kind of a little anger from if
Yeah,
I feel like she's a jerk.
yeah, totally
Sorry if your
tracks for
name's
me.
Jessica, by the way. We're just picking names. It could be
I
Kim.
just picked a name. It was the first thing that popped into my head. And then what follows is, of course, our reaction or the behavior that occurs. What would you do about that throughout your day?
Probably avoid her.
Yeah, that makes sense. Some people might confront her. Some people would avoid. Some people would, oh, well, if she says hi to me, I'm going to make sure that I don't say hi to her back.
You can tell my personality, Miss Avoidance over here.
No, I've just been doing it for a long enough time. I've heard most of it at this point, and it tracks. All of that makes sense if we believe the first thought that pops into our head. What's another reason she might not have said anything?
She didn't hear.
So she didn't hear anything, and what emotion is going to follow from that?
We'd have more understanding if if we knew she didn't hear.
Yeah. Understanding. I've heard concern as well. Like,
Mhm.
that's not like Jessica. Jessica's usually a very nice, person. So I don't know what's going on there. And then the behavior that might follow, what would you do?
Go check on her.
Yeah. Kind of check in with her. So this idea of a thought that pops into our head and we have to sort of just attach to it like it's gospel truth. This is a habit that every person has done at some point. And if they say that they haven't, you will see a liar in front of you. It's not that it's a bad thing, because sometimes our thoughts are accurate. Sometimes our emotions are accurate. Sometimes they're not. Instead of attaching to the thought immediately as it comes up, this is where practicing those mindfulness skills pops in. I'm able to catch the thought as it occurs to me. Or if I can't catch the thought in the moment, I can catch my emotion a bit better. And I can reverse engineer, well, what's the thought that is influencing this emotion? In the example that you brought up with the husband, I'm feeling pretty unloved. I'm feeling pretty upset because my husband isn't helping me. I've sort of already become judge, jury, executioner on the thought that he's being lazy, he doesn't love me. Versus if I'm able to catch that and go, okay, well, I'm having a thought that my husband doesn't love me. I'm having a thought that he isn't being very helpful. That's a little bit different from he's being lazy, he's being unhelpful, he doesn't love me. There's a little bit of distance between the thought and who you are. And in that gap is where we can start to make better decisions for ourselves, change our thought patterns. Okay, I'm recognizing I'm feeling angry. That's influencing my thought pattern. I'm not a bad person. It's okay. We all have negative thoughts about the people that we love. No reason to be judgmental, just recognizing that it's happening and then choosing to do something differently of maybe I do need to, ask him for help. In fact, this is a specific issue that's near and dear to my heart, because my wife and I actually had a similar thing where she would be the one to tend to pass out very quickly and want to go to bed. But then I was the one that had to, make sure the pets are okay, make sure the, dishes are away and all this. And eventually I said something to her and she goes, okay, well, yeah, I'm happy to help. And she's been helpful ever since. But prior to that, I'd just been kind of sitting on those emotions, letting them fester. You don't care. You don't think about, things the way that I do. You're not as observant. All of that can come out and build. And that, of course, is going to push us beyond that 0 to 7 range into a place we don't really want to go.
Thank you for sharing that, by the way, because I think when we share those experiences, everyone understands this is normal. And it really takes, like you said, we don't have to believe the thought and we can work with that and we can
Hmm.
communicate. And I think that's one of the hardest things is you can't communicate till you understand that that thought it may or may not even be true. It's amazing how fast our brains go to negative though. So we have to really rewire. It's
Hmm.
work to reframe the things that are going on. And I love that you have tools. What's your favorite? Mindfulness. We're going to use that word, but I get now what you're saying. I love it because I did write it down. Pay attention on purpose, being present. I might not be saying it perfectly, in a non-judgmental way.
No, you got it.
And yeah, I think it's amazing. I love it. And what's your favorite tool?
Man, there's so many. I would
Okay,
say
top three.
top three. All right. So first one is what's called 5 for 5. So this is a 5-minute exercise that you can do to really ground yourself in the moment because you're going to use all of your senses. So first minute, everything that you can see, just identify it. Go. Second minute, everything that you can hear, taste, touch, tangibly touch. What I miss? Smell. Everything that you can smell. The reason why I love this activity so much is because for the first two, I usually start with my clients with sight and then sound. Not so bad, right? You can identify a lot of things that you see or hear in the moment. But then when we hit smell or taste, all of a sudden it slows down and they go, nothing. I got nothing. And that's when I nudge them just a little bit and I say, well, just sit with it. See if you can identify something. And you'd be amazed that given 5, 10, 15 seconds, they start to come up with things. And it's in that little bit of maybe discomfort, trying something new, trying something a little different, they're able to start flexing their mindfulness muscles. It's like, you go to the gym to flex your physical muscles. We got to flex our mental muscles too. Practice that once a day. You can do it multiple times a day, but if you do it once a day, imagine where you'd be for a week, after a week. Imagine where you'd be 2 weeks, a month from now. You'd probably be a lot more mindful in your daily life. Second activity that I love for mindfulness, naturally, I'm a little biased here, but any kind of guided meditation. That's just because I have a guided meditation podcast. But one of the things that I like to remind people of is that meditation and mindfulness, while they often go hand in hand, they don't necessarily need to be linked. And if meditation isn't your thing, that's okay. You don't need to practice meditation to be mindful. That being said, a lot of people think that if I want to meditate, I need to shave my head, move to Tibet, sit on a mountaintop for 7 hours a day and meditate. And it's not at all how it works. I mean, there are meditations out there that are 5 minutes. I've even released a few. You can Google on YouTube, 10-minute meditations. Do that every single day for a week, 2 weeks, a month. It's amazing what giving yourself the gift of now can do. And that's exactly what you mentioned with the car ride as well. The third, I'd say my third favorite, is going for a mindful walk. So how often do we go on a walk and we've got maybe an audiobook or music on, or we're talking to someone on the phone, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with those things. When was the last time we actually left the house without our phones and maybe walked for 10, 15 minutes and just spent time in the moment? And even if our minds start to wander a little bit, again, it's okay. We don't need to say, God, we're failures or anything like that. Just gently, just kind of nudge it back, congratulating ourselves that, hey, I was mindful of the fact that my mind was wandering and now I'm going to bring it back. But just being in that moment, especially if you can do it around nature, have some kind of 10, 15-minute nature walk, that can be incredibly restorative, and it's going to really help people's moods throughout the day as well. You do that enough, a week, 2 weeks, a month, when you're standing in the kitchen at 10 at night and you're noticing that you're reaching for that food, well, all of a sudden, hey, all those mindfulness skills that Greg talked about, I've been practicing them, I'm recognizing what are my emotions? What are my thoughts? What can I do differently in this moment to actually help me change my relationship with food rather than just feeling like the food is controlling me?
Those are really powerful. 5 for 5 is, I really like how you said the taste and the smell take longer. I was sitting there trying to do it at the same time and I was having the same reaction. It was taking me a minute, but I think
Hmm.
that's what we need. I think we need
Yeah.
to take that minute to find that sensation. And we are going to talk more about guided meditation. I'm really excited about that. I am such a fan of walking, and anybody who's listening to the podcast on an ongoing basis knows that I'm like a broken record because it not only stabilizes hormones and blood sugar, but we do get to process our emotions and that our eyes are moving, our legs are moving, we've got brain power going on. But I will say that there is a habit to take the phone. We're so afraid, I think, to be bored or we have to be preoccupied all the time. And I feel like the phone, sometimes walking without the phone, we have to take that break because some of those moods, that anxiety, that overthinking, I think all of that gets compounded when I'm on the phone too long during the day. I'm going to just be honest. With our jobs, with posting, with being in touch with people, contacting clients, rearranging schedules, all of it adds up after a while, and taking that walk without is so important. In fact, yesterday, this is a true story, kind of embarrassing. I was in a mood. There was a lot that had gone on during the day, and I've got aging parents, I got stuff going on, and just a lot going on. And I was in a mood, and I knew I needed to leave the phone behind. It was so hard, I was grappling. I'm like, maybe someone will text me, maybe I need something. I don't need anything, by the way, for 10, 15 minutes. And I walked. It wasn't even nice out. It was a little drizzly, a little rainy, but I have a lot of trees in my area. And I'm lucky I have animals. I have donkeys and horses down the road. So I go down there. You cannot go out in a bad mood on a walk and come back and still be in a bad mood. It really changes your perspective. It's amazing. So thank you very much for bringing that up also.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that as well. I mean, talking about stress and how that can impact people's moods and just their daily functioning, especially if you find yourself part of the sandwich generation, they call it, right? You got kids, you got parents, and you're the one that has to be treating all of them, taking care of them all. That's a lot of pressure. The other thing that you said that I was internally kind of laughing about is, you know, it's amazing what 15 to 20 years of smartphones has done to us. There was a time before where you just walk out of the house and someone's got to call you, or they'll leave a message on the answering machine and that's it.
That was the deal, and we would run home if we were expecting. I was waiting
Hmm.
for the boy to call, and I had to run home and find out if it was on the answering machine or not. I know, and you know what? We survived. We drove down the road, letting my kids go to school, and them having phones was a very false sense of safety, and we just keep thinking we need it, but somehow, yeah, you're right, we all survived.
Yeah, and it's something that has become, I think, a big contributor to anxiety in general, which of course is going to impact our eating habits. This is a complete aside, but I saw a program. It's called Get Up and Grow. No, now I'm blanking on it. Shoot, she's going to be mad when Lenore. It'll come to me, but it's about teaching parents that it's okay to let your child, be away from the phone. And in fact, what they do is they have parents of, 7, 8-year-old kids sit in the car in the parking lot, and then they have the kid go into the store and order something. And it's like, it's not a big deal, but the anxiety of everybody involved, because we're so used to having the phone in constant contact, it can be a little anxiety provoking. And so even going out for a walk, sometimes that's intimidating for people because, but what if something happens? What if I miss something? It's okay.
Yeah.
We'll be
And
all right.
that's anxiety. We have such a future focused mind, which brings us back to you and I talking exactly about being in the moment. We are all so future focused that we're making up problems before they happen. We're creating
Yes.
worry. And it's funny because I was watching, I'm gonna piggyback on that program, a show in Japan where they send the kids out very young to get on public transportation and to go. It's like a rite of passage. And I wish I could think of what that was called too. But because everyone there does it and everyone there looks out for the children, they can send a 4 or 5-year-old on public transportation someplace and it's going to be okay when they get off at the other end. And the parents don't seem to have the anxiety that we have over that happening.
Yeah,
Wow.
it takes some
Yeah,
training. By the way, it's Lenore Skenazy, Free Range Kids, the Let Grow Project. So
that's
for anyone
great.
interesting,
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. Free
of
Range
course.
Kids, the Let Grow Project. I do think that's really fascinating and I love when we throw in some extra things in there because everybody's dealing with the same things. And you're sending our kids to college
Yep.
and they're not answering the phone right away. Well, they're actually probably having a good time or they're in class. I used to
Hmm.
teach high school math before I went back to school for health coaching and the kids that had their phones on and we were kind of at the beginning of it when I taught a long time ago. Now it's just so much harder for everyone. But not having the phones on was part of the discipline, right? But when someone would get a text message in class and I caught them with their phone, it would be their mom a lot of times, not even a friend. So, yeah, what do you do with that? Like, it's my mom. I know, but she knows you're here and you're safe. So I'm going to move on from that, but I love that
Sure.
conversation. I want to talk about meditation because I know there's so many women who, when I've talked about meditation, and I get it because I used to be in this category of feeling like my thoughts were too fast. They were too much was coming in. And I think I misunderstood meditation also, that I had to clear my head. Can you help us understand a little bit more about what's happening in meditation and can someone, even with racing thoughts, benefit from 5 or 10 minutes of meditation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as I mentioned, the brain has a lot of thoughts. And if I'm a high achiever, if I'm someone doing a lot, I have a lot of pressure, stress, my mind is going to be racing quite a bit. And this is exacerbated by our whole conversation around technology, smartphones, all of that. So the idea of sitting still for 10 minutes is uncomfortable because even if you take the technology out, the brain wants to try and find something to look at. The brain likes patterns. The brain likes to think through things, and that's a good thing. That's helpful. Sometimes, though, it's overactive. And if someone's having racing thoughts, it's uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean that meditation is going to not help them. It's just something that we have to practice. The first time that you pick up a basketball, you're not playing against LeBron James. Or the first time you get behind the wheel of a car, you're not doing NASCAR. We have to work our way up to the spaces where the skills can work a little bit more quickly, and maybe work a little bit more efficiently or effectively for us. I think a lot of times, especially you'd mentioned social media earlier about scrolling, it's so easy to compare and despair, right? And that everything looks good on this person's end and they have, 100,000 followers. So clearly they know something that I don't. And, I'm never going to get there because I'm not there right now. Well, odds are that the person is not actually where you think they are because, videos are edited and, everything is for looks on social media. Not everything, but a lot of things. And so rather than think about how I need to go from 0 to 100 in the span of a day, maybe thinking about the journey and that it's okay to have a journey. What's the Lao Tzu quote? The journey of a 1,000 miles begins with a single step. And so the first time that somebody sits down to meditate, it's probably going to be uncomfortable and weird because you're not used
Mhm.
to it. You don't know what you're supposed to do. We see things where, you're supposed to hold your fingers a certain way or you chant the Om or whatever it is. And that's fine. There's different ways of doing meditation. If that's your thing, go for it. But if you're just starting out, all you have to do is be fully present with the idea that's being presented. If it's a guided meditation, you can focus on, the landscape, the imagery that's being presented to you. If you want to try one of those meditations where you just clear your mind as best as you can, you're probably going to fall on your face. And that's
Mhm.
okay. Recognizing that a thought's coming in, just gently coming back to that, quiet place as best as you can. Now, I personally prefer the guided imagery. I think sitting and thinking about nothing can be helpful, but it's just not my cup of tea. So that's why I talk a lot about doing the guided imagery. The fact that your mind is going to be racing, the fact that it's going to be uncomfortable, again, I want to stress, is normal. The fact that you sat down to do it, that is progress. The mantra I always tell people, progress, not perfection. Nobody's going to be perfect. We're going to get there. We're going to get there
Mhm.
as close to perfection as we can if we keep working at it. But we can't get there right now from square one. So it's okay if it doesn't work out the way that you want the first time. Just keep practicing. Just keep trying.
Good. And I love what you just said. The fact that you sat down is progress and progress over perfection. And yes, that is one of my favorite phrases in giving yourselves grace. So what we have for the audience right now is a very special treat that we are going to do a guided meditation. So if you're listening to this while you're driving, just listen. Do not shut your eyes.
Yes.
Just
Please don't
listen
do this
in.
if you're driving.
And if you are driving, come back to it later. And we also will talk about Dr. Greg's podcast. You can go and listen to his amazing meditations there too. So, Dr. Greg, and it's all yours. Help us through this guided meditation. If you are with us and you have a space where you can shut your eyes for a couple minutes, consider this your self-care and your treat for today. No pressure on yourself. Just enjoy the next couple minutes.
All right. So whatever you are sitting on, lying on, wherever you are, again, not if you're driving, I want you to sink into that surface. You're welcome to close your eyes if you want to, but you don't have to. And I want you to take a nice, big, deep breath into your belly and exhale. Just allowing that breath help your body get a little bit heavy, let your muscles grow loose, grow limp as you take another nice big deep breath into your belly and exhale. I want you to do a body scan now. Take a moment and notice any sensations that you're feeling. Maybe you notice that you're carrying some tension in your shoulders. Maybe you notice that you're already relaxed, which is okay. Maybe you notice that you're carrying a little bit of nervousness in your gut. No need to judge it, just examine it, notice it. Ask yourself, how am I feeling right now in this moment? And whatever comes up for you is right for you. Maybe you're feeling tired, anxious, restless. Just name it gently. No need to try and change it. And then ask yourself, what do I actually need right now? And stay with this question for a few seconds and let your intuition tell you exactly what you need. And now I want you to silently make a commitment to do one step towards achieving that need today. Whether it's a little bit more free time, whether it's a walk, whether it's doing some deep breathing later, whatever it is, make a commitment to take one small step toward that goal today. And now I want you to take one more nice big deep breath into your belly, breathing in peace, joy, and harmony, and exhaling stress, anxiety, and worry. Now I want you to feel the surface that you're sitting on, resting on. Feel yourself returning to your body, becoming aware of your surroundings, and when you're ready, you can slowly and easily open your eyes.
That was very nice and very calming. I've never done a meditation. I've done tapping on a podcast, but I've never done meditation. And when you feel the shift and you can see it
Mhm.
in people's eyes, I definitely felt the shift and I appreciate it. If you are listening to this on audio, make sure you reach out to us on social media if you feel like sharing that one goal that you are going to have for yourself today. And if you're watching it on the video, make sure you leave a comment on YouTube. We'd love to hear. Dr. Greg, thank you so much for this beautiful podcast. You have such a wonderful, calming, gentle way of helping women understand what's going on without making them feel judged. And I appreciate you sharing today, and I want everyone to find you. So before we let everybody know where you are and to find your podcast to get more meditations, I would love for you to share with me, is there anything that we missed that you feel like you would like to share? Did I miss anything, or is there anything you want to send the ladies off with today?
I think just kind of a final thought, I want to reiterate this because, again, a lot of times people get very judgmental with themselves. Send yourself some grace. right? Even if you had maybe a little bit of trouble with that meditation, or you're just not sure if you can do this, or and anything that's coming up for you, just give yourself some grace, because you have more power in this than you think, and I'm confident that you can actually change your life the way that you want to. Just be kind to yourself along the way.
I like that. And now, please share with everyone how we can find you and the name of your podcast.
Of course, happy to. So, the best place to find me is my practice website, royaloasispi.com. The full thing is Royal Oasis Psychotherapy Institute, but I didn't want to make everyone type that out in the URL. So,
Mhm.
royaloasispi.com. You can learn more about the therapy that I do if you are looking to take it a step further. You want some customized treatment, I'd be happy to see you there. I'm licensed in 43 states and a few territories, so odds are that I would be able to see you virtually. My podcast is also on that website. It's called Meditations by Gregory Obert. It is guided meditations. Traditionally, it's been guided meditations every other week, but I've been doing a lot of interviews, bringing on experts, talking about mental health issues. So you can do one or the other, interviews or meditations, or both.
Mhm.
You can also find out about my other projects there as well. I have a free PDF called the Autopilot Interrupt Protocol to help people with mindfulness each day, as well as video series. One where I play games with my wife, where we have been scared by Resident Evil recently, so you can watch us
What?
freak out. And also a dark psychology series where I talk about the deeper, darker, scary parts of the human mind. Some people like that stuff because, things like serial killer documentaries
True.
are big. So
Hey,
I thought I would talk
women
about it.
women over 40 and true crime is a thing.
Yes. So you can go check out some of those streams as well.
Great. I really appreciate it. We are going to have all that in the show notes also. So make sure you scroll down and check it out. Dr. Greg, thank you so much for being here today. Not only the education, but also, like I said, the gentleness, the compassion. And I know that your clients are being well served. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
And listeners, make sure you nourish your entire life and give yourself grace today.